Can you sign in?
Have us out of here quicker.
Cutting at 6:30.
No bad for our meeting.
This one, we're done at 6:30. That's the goal.
That's not the one I'm worried about.
Yeah, I got it. All right, Mayor, you want to kick it off so we get out of here?
All right, it's 5:15. We'll call this meeting to order. Discussion of the City of Thomaston's new alcohol ordinance. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Russell.
I appreciate everybody coming. This is not a formal meeting of the mayor and council. This is more of an informal town hall style, the purpose of which is I'm going to walk you through the reboot of the city's alcohol ordinance, a bunch of changes, and then we'll try to leave some time for anybody who has questions, and if we need more time or a different meeting, we'll certainly set that up, or if you need some staff time, you're more than welcome to make an appointment to come to our office. But to start off, we have slated for this meeting to be over at 6:30, just because we do have another meeting coming up. So if it runs long, we're going to call it at 6:30. And depending upon the types of questions and the interactions, we may set one up for a later date. But I'm going to ask the city representatives just to start off the meeting. We're going to introduce ourselves by profile so that you can put a face with a name if you're asking questions. And then we'll ask any of our audience who does wish to speak. If you'll please, I think there's an X up here on the floor just so you can be picked up by the camera. Just state your name, what business you represent, then feel free to ask your question. If I get into issues and you have a question at that point, please raise your hand. Like I said, this isn't as formal as a normal council meeting. It's meant to be informative for you and to try to answer questions after we go through the new alcohol ordinance. So I'm Russell Thompson, City Manager, City of Thomaston.
I'm Oasis Nichols, the Deputy City Clerk.
My name is Don Greathouse. I represent the City District 4 of the City Council.
My name is Taylor Smith. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for City of Thomaston.
I'm J.D. Stallings, Mayor of the City of Thomaston.
Ryan Tucker, represent District 3, City Council.
Deanne Whaler, Attorney for the City.
So what we've done, all of the information that we're going to be covering tonight is directed on our website. So I've asked the mayor to pull up the website. The first thing you're going to see, scrolling down, you're going to see this little thing right here. This is kind of a snippet meant to encapsulate some of the major changes within the alcohol ordinance, and then the actual specific details that tie to that are in the actual link right above it. If you click on that link at home, you can pull up the entire alcohol ordinance as it was adopted. So if you brought something to write down on today, when I make notes, if you want to write sections down, if you want to go home and do some reading and have some questions, then feel free to follow up with our staff, either by phone call or email, and we'll try to answer those. So first of all, take a look at this. Like I said, it's just a snapshot. I'm not going to pay a lot of attention to this. This is more of a take it with you, read it at your leisure, and it's a good thing to make notes on. I'm going to spend most of our time walking through the entire document. I'm not going to cover the entire document. Some of it's formalities. There's a lot of definitions, references to state codes, etc., etc. I'm not going to hit those. I'm going to try to highlight the major changes within the ordinance. And then if questions, feel free to ask. So first thing I'd like to note is this ordinance contains about 16 different types of alcohol licenses. And we're going to get into each of those types and what they mean. But that is an increase, I believe, from what we have, 4 or 5?
Yes.
And the previous alcohol ordinance that I believe was drafted in 60s, maybe? Probably been a while. So it was time for a reboot. The first section is basically just definitions. Page 4, Mayor, 4 of 7, at the very bottom, section 6-3, familiarity with the chapter. So if you were an alcohol license holder in the City of Thomaston, it says, it shall be the duty of each licensee to maintain a copy of this chapter on your premises and to instruct each employee the terms that are contained in this ordinance and each licensee and employee shall at all times be familiar. So if you have an alcohol license in the city of Thomaston, make sure you and your employees are familiar with the ordinance. Print out a copy, or you can direct them to the website. That way you know everything that's contained. Page 5 of 37, we get into the actual types of licenses. Section 6, 4, subsection B, and it will lay out every type of license that the city of Thomaston is now offering, some of which will include different effective dates. We do have price differential between inside the Downtown Development Authority and those businesses outside of the Downtown Development Authority. I will tell you that if you're a current license holder now, your license may be called something different, but there's no change in price, right? So we didn't change any of the prices. So if you're packaged beer, now, after the ordinance, your packaged beer, that price is the same. If it's one of the new types of licenses that we've added, we try to be consistent in the fees that we deploy, but all of those are denoted here. I'm not going to read out every type of license because we're going to get into that as we weed through the ordinance. Mayor, page 7 of 37. Page 7 of 37, particularly Article 6. These are the general regulations that you have to follow to have an alcohol license. Some of them are pretty commonsensical, and a lot of them have not changed from earlier iterations in the previous ordinance. But I will call attention to Section F and Section G at the bottom. Inspection. Business premises, if you hold a license under the alcohol ordinance, shall be open to inspection at any and all times of officers or officials that are authorized by the city manager. If you have an alcohol license, which per this ordinance is constituted as a privilege, not a right, then you will be open for inspection. Those aren't going to be over, regulatory. It just gives us the ability to do that in the event something comes up and we have to do an investigation. I don't foresee that, but that provision I just want to call your attention to. Subsection G under Article 2 is a little bit different. Not talking about grandfathered licenses or current license holders now, and we're going to get into some of the grandfathering later. But for new alcohol license, if you are applying for a new alcohol license in Thomaston, you have to have a financial interest in the business for which you are applying for the license. So you cannot own a business and then go get somebody off the street to hold your alcohol license. You have to have a financial interest in the business to be eligible for a license. Let's see here. Page 9 of 37, Mayor. This is one of the big changes in the ordinance. This was recommended by the chief of police, and it's in a lot of city ordinances that we found. If you are a package store, you sell alcohol for off-premise, then you are required to have a security camera on each of your registers and focusing on the entrance and the exit of your building. If you're a current license holder and you would apply for a renewal, you'll have 6 months to come into compliance with the provision of this ordinance. And the ordinance goes into detail what we're looking for. Every business who holds an alcohol license also has to have on-hand staff that know how to run the equipment at all times. So, in putting your video equipment in, the chief of police is going to conduct those inspections prior to the issuance of a license. So, if you're applying for a brand new license today, upon the effective date of this ordinance, you got to be in compliance with the security camera provision under the ordinance. If you're a current license holder and you apply for a renewal, you will have 6 months to come into compliance with the camera provision of the ordinance. Any questions on that section? A lot of stores already have it, and it's meant to be a public safety issue. A lot of times, when we do have issues, I wouldn't say a lot of times, but when there are issues and police officers show up, a lot of times the equipment either doesn't work, or it's outdated, or nobody at the store knows how to use it. So to mitigate that issue in conformance and with similarity to other jurisdictions that we looked at when we drafted the ordinance, the chief of police liked that provision. So that is now incorporated in the ordinance. Subsection 3. Yes, sir.
My name is Bill Singh. I represent Mr. Bees. I wanted to clarify on this, say that we gotta have a recording camera system in the premises, and all the employees working in your store should be, or supposed to be, knowing how to run that equipment.
You need.
I don't think that's a good idea. Just because the security purpose is the reason, because, of course, you gotta trust your employees, and you got a camera over there for a reason, not just for the, not only the security purposes, for the theft as well. So if you tell your employee how to run your equipment and how to back and forth and go, they're very easy, they can go delete what they wanted to delete and do whatever they wanted to do in your business. So I think, I like to get more clarified about that, see if that's exactly what city wanted. First of all, like my office always be locked, and my security camera system is in my office, and I don't give key to my employee to my office. So I don't know if that's what we need to do, and I'm pretty sure there's a business people sitting here, and the Councilmember Ryan Tucker, I don't know how the banking, I'm not trying to bring them in as far as they allow to their employee to, go ahead.
No, not every employee.
That's what I understood.
At least one employee who's on duty.
Well, I mean, that's every employee, because there's a first shift and second shift. The first shift, if something happened to my store, whoever working the first shift, if that girl don't know how to run the camera system, I'm in trouble, because I didn't taught that girl. And the second shifts come in, because I got a 7 employee, so I gotta teach all of them, because one of them has to be there all the time. So I like to get a clarify on it.
Yeah, we can talk about that, but
Yes.
as it's written, that was verbatim that I read. I don't know the sophistication of technology now. I would imagine it's pretty simple to encrypt or protect password.
Right, right. That's what I'm trying to say.
To where they couldn't delete it.
Well, I
But
mean.
you get in the system, they can get in the system in the format in the form.
Right.
She can watch it in
So
the
it's,
home and they can delete it there.
All right, I'll talk with the chief about that provision and we'll
Yeah.
get some clarification.
Yes,
The
sir.
intent, the intent is that we have access to it when we need it.
Of course, of course.
Police come, they don't want to be waiting.
There's a lot of
two-
times,
two or
I'm
three.
sorry to interrupt you, there's a lot of times that where my store is, in that intersection, it's a once a week accident there. And the police come in and look at my camera, I never say I'm not gonna show it to you, I'll be more than glad to show it to them.
Right.
But, because that's being a good citizen, you gotta do what you gotta do,
I'll talk to the chief on that provision. If we need to make some tweaks,
please.
We can do that.
Because I don't think it's a good idea to have an employee to access to your security camera system. You gotta give owner of or manager or supervisor to amount of times that if I'm not in the store, I'm not out of the country. I can't be in the store within a couple hours. I live in the city limit, but I happen to be out of town or I can make the arrangement to somebody go there and show them what they need to see.
all right, we'll work on that piece. I'll meet with the chief.
Thank you.
Subsection R, under the same article, this is the same deal, off premise, restricted by churches, the distancing. There is one special exemption, so that we put in the ordinance, and it's been an issue for some time. Back in May of the year, the state of Georgia actually changed the law on distancing requirements from churches. Used to be, I think it was 100 feet or 100 yards or something like that. For on-premise consumption only, not package sales, but if you're serving beer by the drink or if you're making mixed drinks by the drink, The state of Georgia now allows local discretion and local control over those distancing requirements. So for restaurants only, if you are pouring on the premises, then we have rolled that setback down to 5 feet. So the intention of that was particularly for our downtown hub with proximity to religious institutions. We had some of our downtown inventory that was ineligible, if they wanted to be a restaurant and have alcohol. So we took, what the state gave us, we consulted with the mayor and council. So for restaurants, that setback has been reduced down to 5 feet for on-premise consumption only. Another change in this ordinance you'll find, still page 10 of 37, Section 6, subsection, or Section 627 is the hours of operation. And you can go into the different license classes. They say B, C, E, G. When you pull up your ordinance, I know that B and C are our traditional beer and wine. We've had a lot of questions about this in the past. This now changes the hours of sale, and this is for on-premise, I believe, Deanne, is that right?
That's right.
So on-premise, if you're pouring, you can now be open till 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. Used to be the cutoff was 12 o'clock p.m. and then I don't think it picked up until Sunday at 11:30. This lets you roll into 2 a.m. So that change has been made.
All right, well, so let me ask you a question. I know you're speaking of the businesses and the restaurants per se right now, and it might be other venue owners inside. How is that affecting the distance between the church for what I just went through?
You have to be a restaurant.
All right, so
If you're not a restaurant, you still conform to the state statute, which is 100 yards.
all right, so that means the permit has to be still in place, or no permit is in place for those weddings that's taking place at Park Lane.
Yeah, so the way the law works is you can't sell.
Not sell.
Yeah.
It's never sell anyway. It's always weddings. Weddings, they don't sell their wine, they don't sell their beer. It's a reception. All right, so that's why that clause is sort of, when it says sale, no weddings, no event that takes place at Park Lane does any of that. So from weddings to baby showers or whatever it was, a reunion, if they're bringing in wine, if they was going to bring in beer, it's not sale.
So we'll get into that later, but the way the ordinance is drafted is there is still a prohibition on brown bagging, with the caveat that you can brown bag if you are a licensed holder. If you have a license to sell alcohol, or you are a caterer that is licensed to sell alcohol, then you can apply for a brown bag order. So you can't just bring your beer in. Got to be a license involved.
All right, so even with my situation with the event, I wouldn't sell anyway. I mean, so even if it was a license,
Yeah, they would have to have a licensed caterer, and they would have to meet the setback restrictions that are tied to the state law.
the person, whoever's holding the party, you're saying would have to have a licensed caterer
Yes.
that has license to sell.
Yes.
But even if they're not selling,
Well,
because weddings again, they're not selling.
Pick up at that point, brown
Yeah,
bag
it's
license.
either you sell it or it's brown bagging.
Right, so it would be.
Brown bagging's prohibited, so if you're going to sell it, you have to have a license.
Well, okay, so I'll let you go ahead, but I just want to make sure that the terminology is a little funny,
Yep.
because at the same time, you're saying they're no longer.
If it's free, it's brown bagging.
Uh-huh.
That's prohibited.
Mhm.
If you want to sell it, you got to have a license.
All right, so what I asked you was, is the one-day permit still
Yes,
in
it's-
play for them?
There's a one-day permit in here. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we'll get to that section. All right, section 629, 11 of 37. Prior to the issuance of any license pursuant to this chapter, an applicant must be in compliance with all applicable requirements under federal, state, and/or city ordinances. Specifically, the last section of this paragraph says, additionally, the applicant shall be in compliance with all other city ordinances specifically including without limitation all ordinances that relate to the maintenance of physical location which the license is sought. Which that means if you are a business and you want to sell alcohol and you have property maintenance violations, you will not be eligible for an alcohol license. If you've got untreated exterior, no paint, that's a property maintenance violation, no alcohol license. If you've got more than 30% of your windows being covered by signs, which is a current ordinance violation, no alcohol license. If you've got a sign at your property that is not permitted, no alcohol license. If you've got a sign that is in more than 50% disrepair, which is in violation of the city's ordinance, no alcohol license. You have got to be in 100% compliance with the City of Thomaston's property maintenance code to be eligible to hold an alcohol license. Questions? All right. All right, now we're going to get into the specific license regulations. Page 11 of 37, this is Article 3, specific regulations. So our first license class is A1 and A2. This is retail, wine, and beer. This is your package store. Got some changes here. All right, subsection B, for entities that want to do package sales, have to maintain a monthly inventory of $7,500 exclusive of alcohol and lottery to be eligible to hold a package license. Subsection G, and these are written in just about all of them. Licensee must derive 50% of his or her gross revenue in either food, gas, or other means from some other means than alcohol or lottery. So if 50% of your revenue comes from alcohol and lottery, not eligible to hold an alcohol license. All right, section 642, this is Class B. This is your retail beer and wine by the drink. Same thing. Licenses must derive 50% of the gross revenue from food, services, or other means. This is a change in the alcohol license because before you had to have 50% food sales. So if you weren't a restaurant or a restaurant business, then you were otherwise ineligible. Now they're allowing, provided that it doesn't come from alcohol, you can have a pouring license if you get 50% of your retail or your revenue from some other source. There is a provision in here that excludes rent. Like if I own a big building and I partition it off for 3 or 4 business, I can't count that rental income as gross receipts for my eligibility to have a pouring license. Class B3, which is still under section 6-42, the city has created 2 bar licenses, right? So we're going to get into the differentiating types of bar licenses. 2 things on bar licenses. 1, they're only allowed within the DDA. If you have questions where the DDA is, there's actually a map on the city's website. You can punch in your address and it'll tell you whether you're in the DDA or whether you're outside of the DDA. The other thing is bar licenses will not be eligible, and I believe the effective date is February 1st, 2021. 22, sorry. Thank you. So we're going to allow 2 bar licenses within the DDA effective February 1st, 2022. Now, what is a bar license? So the bar license is not tied or restricted to any type of gross revenue outside of alcohol. So if you hold the bar license, then 100% of your revenue can come from the sale of alcohol. Class B brown bag. So what the council decided to do, and we saw this in a couple of the other ordinances, if you have a pouring permit for on premises and you already have that license, you can apply for a brown bag license to where if you want to allow patrons to bring in their own bottle of wine. Say you've got a beer and wine license and you normally pour, but you want a brown bag. Maybe you have a special event for your patrons to bring in their own wine. You can apply to do that. You don't have to. We just thought, why not? Maybe a nice thing. We've had some questions regarding that. That's an add-on license to your regular class license. Class C1 is C2. This is your retail liquor by the drink. Same thing, 50% of the revenue have to come from some other means, but it's not necessarily tied to the provision of food. As long as that 50% comes from some other mean, then you would be eligible for a retail liquor by the drink. And again, with the retail liquor by the drink, those distancing requirements, if you are a restaurant, are greatly reduced down to 5 feet if you were serving on the premises. Page 14 of 37. This is your C2 bars. This is the liquor bar license for the DDA. So for clarification, if you want to hold a bar, if you want to have a bar license, if you want to have beer, there's a Class B beer. If you want to have liquor, there's a Class C bar. So you would have to have both of those licenses. So 2 bars, 2 different licenses per bar. Same thing, Section 6-45, Class C brown bagging. If you hold a Class C license to pour liquor, and you want people to bring in their own high-end bottle of, brandy or whatnot, you can apply for the brown bagging license on top of your license, and then your patrons would be allowed to do that. Class D. Yep.
I'm sorry, Russell, the Section 6, the number 2 right there, if you go up a little bit, it says sold to an individual 21 years of age or older who shall be limited to 2 mixed drink per entry to order.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped that part and I had it marked out. This is the to-go option, right? So this is to go. I think the state law made some changes, and we saw a lot of this change due to.
I wanted to put on there for to go, because what I understand, if somebody come in and want to sit down and drink, you can't serve them more than 2 drinks.
Yeah, well, it says so. It's a retail by the drink on premises license, and this is the OCGA for off premises consumption. So if I hold a liquor license, normally I can't sell you a liquor drink and then you take it with you and go. This provision allows you to where, like for call-in orders, if you're a Mexican restaurant and you've got margaritas, somebody wants to call in, they want to order a margarita to go, this allows them to do that.
But they cannot sell more than 2 per order.
Yes.
That's what it's saying, right?
Per entree. So like, I could have an entree, he could have an entree, he could have an entree. That's up to 6 between the 3 of us. And that's just to go.
See, by y'all making that understanding makes a lot of sense, but as far as reading it seems like you just can.
So you just got to look at C. So it says pursuant the OCGA and off-premise consumption.
We can clean that up, Nick, I'm sorry, Bill. And what I can do is we'll update that and just make it, we'll put a to-go provision on there and we can cite it.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. C2, again, is the liquor bars within the DDA. We've already talked about the brown bagging. A Class D license is for wholesale beer and wine. If you want to get into the wholesaling business, we now have a provision for that. Class E, on page 15 of 37, this covers your alcoholic beverage caterers. So there are 5 types of caterers in the license. Residential caterers are those caterers that have a valid license. If you've got a valid license to sell in Thomaston, then you can apply to be a caterer in Thomaston. There are non-resident caterers, and those are caterers who are licensed in a different jurisdiction. Outside of the city, maybe they're in the county or they're in a contiguous county. If they're licensed in that jurisdiction, then they would be eligible to apply for a catering license here. Then we have Nonprofit organizations, a lot of this is governed by state law, so bona fide nonprofit civic organizations can apply for up to 6 times per year to sell. Let's see, and then we have a provision in here for city-sponsored events and festivals, and those are their events that the city of Thomaston actually holds. A new change to the alcohol license is in 648, still on page 15 of 37. Breweries are now permitted. You can read the definition of brewery. Most of this is taken exactly out of the state law, but as before this wouldn't have been allowed. We recognize that's kind of a growing trend. So for anybody interested in opening a brewery, by definition of state law, we now have a license to allow that. Class G is a brew pub. This is where the alcohol is actually generated or made on site, but there's a food aspect, and the state law regulates how much you can actually make on premises, how much you can sell. But we now have a brew pub license for anybody, and I think it says 3,000 barrels annually, and that's tied to the state law. So if anybody interested in doing a brew pub, we now have that availability. Class H on page 17 of 37 is a license for hotels. If you have at least 40 rooms in your hotel and 80% of your revenue comes from your rooms, then you can apply to have an alcohol license at your hotel. Class I is for a distillery, just like a brewery. This will allow people, if they want to distill liquor up to a certain amount per year, then you now are able to do that with a Class I license. Class J is a bottle house. This is kind of like the old brown bag, but a Class J license is available for art galleries, art studios, bed and breakfasts, and golf courses. So these are the licenses to where if you got an art gallery, a studio, a bed and breakfast, or a golf course, your patrons can now bring alcohol. Like if you want to go play golf and you want to bring a 12-pack and you want to drink the 12-pack, the Class J bottle house license is the license that would be required for the entity to hold that. Class K is a specialty gift shop. You can apply for this license. I think there's some square footage requirements in here, but provided that you don't exceed 15% of your sales from alcohol and gift baskets, you can now have a specialty gift shop license. Let's say, Rescue Me or one of these other stores, they put the little gift baskets, you got your candles or whatnot. Now they can sell wine in the gift basket. The only caveat is that markup can't eclipse 15% of the gross revenue. So specialty gift shops are now allowed. Class L, wine tastings are now allowed. If you have a B or K license, bottle house or specialty gift shops, if you want a wine tasting license, you can do that, and then you can have wine tastings, at your business. Class M, and a lot of these are speculative type licenses and hoping that we garner some of these type businesses that don't necessarily exist today, but we'd like to see, within our jurisdiction. Farm winery, we allow that. We created a Class N license for boutique hotels. This is a little bit different than your hotel license, but if you're a smaller hotel, still the 80% rule on your revenue, then you could apply for an alcohol license and be a boutique hotel. All right, so we're going to talk about special events in Article 4, that is on page 20 of 37. Some changes here. Subsection C, you can get up to 6 permits a year for a special event. Special event, by my understanding, being, correct me if I'm wrong, is garnered to events that do require some sort of public infrastructure, whether that be road closure, police presence, etc., etc.
Yes.
All right, so you can get up to 6 per year. Subsection D, All applicants provide proof that the adjacent property owners and/or renters of the adjacent property have been notified of application at least 10 days prior to the event. If you want to hold a special event, you want an alcohol license for that event, you have to notify all the adjacent property owners at least 10 days prior to the event. Pulled out a couple of these. All right, so the fee permit, another change in the past was that a special event permit was only good for 1 day. You can now pull a special event permit for up to 3 days. Price is incremental depending on how many days you want your special event for. And then the license actually terminates at the end of the event. So let's say you pull a special event permit for 3 days, but your event ends after day 2. The license would terminate at that point.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Again, you're specifying that special event based on what she just said, outside, contacting people around you, whatever the case may be. It does not, again, fall up under the weddings. So I'm trying to get specific information on what you have in here. Because what I came in before was considered a special day, 1 day permit.
Right.
So that meant, really, with this definition, that's not the same as a wedding.
Right.
All right, so what is the definition now for those that's not,
If you want to sell alcohol,
don't even mention sale, because it's never sale. It's always the weddings. It's the weddings and
All right.
things of that
if
nature.
you want to give away alcohol, get a license. If you want to sell alcohol, get a license.
Talking to patrons again. So if they have their weddings, some choose to have caterers, all right, where they bring in caterers that might be licensed. Some bring in caterers that it's their family. They decide to cook themselves and just bring in food.
Caterers are licensed, they can do it.
No, I'm talking about, and some aren't though. But some weddings don't want to go that route. They have their own families cooking, bringing it in themselves. But my point is, it still wouldn't be considered, if it's not a caterer there, what would be the definition? Because it's still not considered a special 1 day permit.
It would be brown bagging and it would be prohibited.
So how are you allowing for these particular people to have weddings now? If it's not, if they said, we can't no longer have wine, we can't no longer have beer, I don't even care about the liquor being across from the church or whatever the case may be. This thing was in place prior to me, before that. So this is the first time.
No, right now, brown bagging is prohibited. Right now.
Since when? Per our conversation.
2017, 18?
Let's see.
So why did I have to get a special day permit?
From a caterer. Caterer.
I'm not talking about for caterer, I'm talking about for the actual wedding. If there wasn't no caterer,
There's no permit for a special event unless you're going to be on a public street. Now, if you're going to have alcohol, that's different.
all right, so that's what I'm trying to make sure, I'm very specific. Someone came to me and said, I would like to have a wedding. All right, they're not using a caterer, a licensed caterer. They just want the wedding there. They have their family bring in their food. It's a small wedding from 50 to 100 people. What will be in place for them to have beer or wine?
Get a licensed caterer.
So the licensed caterer, again, has to be the one who gets this 1 day permit. Even though it's not
Well,
involved.
they wouldn't even need a 1 day permit. If I got a business that's got a pouring license and they apply to get a caterer license, they're a licensed caterer. They don't have to get a special event permit because they're licensed.
So is this per or once a year that they're able to do as many weddings they want with this particular same caterer?
If you're a licensed caterer, you're a licensed caterer.
Within or out of the city ordinance? Either or?
So, repeat the question?
Do they have to be licensed within the city of Thomaston?
No.
All right.
Well, yes. There is some reciprocity, however you say that word.
Reciprocity.
Yeah. If they've got a license in another jurisdiction, they can apply to get a license here. And that license would be good until the end of December 31st.
So even with an existing license, they have to apply for another license in the
Yes.
city of Thomaston?
If they want to cater here. If they want to cater in the jurisdiction where they got their license, that's between them and that jurisdiction. If they want to cater here, they gotta have a Thomaston license.
Brown bagging's been prohibited since at least 2001.
well, I have, there was two owners before me at Park Lane who, I guess, never did come up.
Okay, 10 days prior to the event, this is for special events. We have to have a meeting with city staff to go over everything. Subsection E, under posting of the license and notification. All special event alcohol beverage permit licenses shall be posted at the greeting area or the main entrance to the event. So if you go to a concert downtown and they're having a special event, they got an alcohol license, it's got to be posted when you come in. Their license. Let's see, security 6-73 on page 22 of 37. The chief of police will be in charge of security for special events. If you pull a special event permit in the city of Thomaston, at a bare minimum, there will be 2 city of Thomaston police officers present at the special event. At the discretion of the chief of police, there may be more, and then that cost is assigned to the person who pulls the special event. So if you're going to have a special event and you're going to have 20,000 people at your event, the chief of police is going to look at your application. He's going to make a determination based on the event, how many people are going to be there, how many officers will be necessary for traffic or crowd control, and then those officers and the cost for them being present at the event will be paid by the applicant. Article 5, which is tax, the excise tax, this is basically the same. Nothing has changed on the excise tax. Page 25 of 37, this gets into the administrative and record keeping process. Every license, if you have an alcohol license, the city of Thomaston, you have to keep all of your records, receipts, invoices, and any other documents as are required tied to the sale of alcohol for 3 years. Okay, so we have to audit you.
Just the alcohol, right?
Yes. Well, anything that would dictate that your eligibility, where 50% of your revenue was captured, you need to keep sufficient records to prove that 50% of your revenue was exclusive of alcohol and lottery. As long as you got that, then we're good. Examination of records and audits. We've talked about that before. If you have an alcohol license, then you will be subject to audit. Article 6, under administrative procedures. Again, no licensee defined herein shall be issued to any person who owes any debt or obligation to the city. If you're buying on your property taxes, utility bills, fines, or other fees, you're ineligible to hold a license. Occupational tax, property tax, utility fees, and here again in section 3, subsection 3, under 6-106, anybody who's in violation or has a property maintenance issue as defined by the City of Thomaston's International Property Maintenance Code or any of the general nuisance statutes. If you have junk and abandoned cars, if you have dilapidated signs, if you have facade that is in need of repair and it's not protectively treated, if you've got rotten boards, if your roof is falling in, any property maintenance violations exclude you from eligibility from holding an alcohol license. Page 27 of 37. Subsection C, no retail license required by this division shall be granted to any person if such person retains for the operation of the licensed establishment an employee who has been convicted of a felony. If you hire a convicted felon, you are ineligible to hold a alcohol license. Subsection F, no license for the sale of alcohol beverage shall be granted to any person when the location for which the license sought has been revoked within the last 12 months. So if your alcohol license is revoked, another license will not be issued to that location for at least 12 months unless there's total, complete ownership changeover of the business. 29 of 37, this talks about the applicant. This is a little bit different change. We've already clarified that you have to have a financial interest in the business to be eligible for a license. To be eligible for a license, you have to live within 30 miles of the city of Thomaston. If you do not live within 30 miles of the city of Thomaston, you then, at your option, can appoint an agent. Agent is defined in the ordinance. They have to work at least a minimum of 30 hours in the store. They have to have discretion over staffing and operations, and then there has to be an affidavit executed between the license holder, who does have the financial interest, and the person that is designated as the registered agent. That registered agent has to live within 30 miles of the city of Thomaston. New change. Subsection 4 gets into the different types of corporations and businesses, whether you were a sole proprietor, whether you were a LLC, et cetera, et cetera. It then details how you will apply and who will be responsible, and that is on page 29 of 37 in the new ordinance. Section 6-109, which is on page 30 of 37, talks about the agent. If you live outside of 30 miles of the jurisdiction, you can name an agent. It says here what we talked about. They have to work 30 hours a week, must be an employee with directional authority over the operations. They have to have the authority to hire and fire, oversee the process of personnel, responsibility to train and oversee staff, enforce policy compliance requirements, authority to set and revise local business policies, oversee implementation of those policies, and the authority to purchase and receive alcoholic inventory. That's if you name an agent, that person is going to execute an affidavit with the person of financial interest, has to meet the definition of agent under the city's new code. 31 of 37, 6-110, building requirements, inspection of the business premises. This basically says that the building has to be complete. Not a lot there. The next big change, and some of these get into suspension, due process. There have been some changes. Read through that at your leisure. We hope we never come to that provision. Section 6-116, subsection A, talks about how licenses are transferable or assignable in the event of death. Let's say you were the license holder and you pass away for the continued operation of the business, then whoever would be the heir would be able to work under that license for a specified period of time. And all of that is denoted in subsection A1 under 6-116.
Another quick question, Russell.
Yep.
Is the license, you could have went through it real fast or not, the license, like my caterer license that's on file with the city now, is that concurrent for 1 year, or when the new year, it just was issued in August of this year? So when the new year comes, does it go to August of 22?
No,
Or
all licenses term on December 31st. Now, currently in the old ordinance and in the new license. So the way that's going to work is for renewals. If you were renewing your application this year, then there will be a 6-month provision to come into compliance with the security camera provision for my off-premise sales. And then everybody, whether they be renewal or new applicant, expiring or going into effect January 1st of 2023,
Yes.
will have to be in full compliance with the entirety of the ordinance.
All right. So I don't want to get mixed up with them, because when people start calling and asking about weddings, I just want to make sure when she gets ready, she has to come back down and reapply again for February or December, at the end of December, going into the new year. She's already on file for the fingerprints and everything, so does that have to be redone? Or is that concurrent?
So we're doing fingerprints every 2 years.
All right, so she's still good with that, so she just has to reissue the license.
As part of the renewal, as long as the fingerprints are on file, I think it's a renewal, they'll check that every 2 years. Now, all the distancing requirements, you know, whether you're a caterer or not, all the distancing requirements are still the same.
So what was happening with me this previous year, you're saying now, regardless of the caterer that's in place, that's on file, the 1 day the permit that I was receiving for the weddings is not available.
The way I understand, and I'll get with you and confirm, but the way I understand it is if you are a non-residential licensed caterer, then you can come in and cater events in Thomaston, provided that all of the distancing requirements are still met from churches and schools and everything like that. So if you want to have an event and you have a licensed caterer, it's not a per event, is you hold the caterer's license and now you're.
Well, I'm just trying to be very specific, because we know in my position, the churches are across the street from me.
You're not going to be able to sell liquor.
I'm not talking about selling, I'm talking about for the same way that has been taking place for the past year, where she would have to get a special day permit for the weddings to have beer and wine.
For beer and wine, my understanding under the ordinance, the way it is drafted, is she has a licensed caterer, she has a caterer license, and she will be able to sell for events for the duration of the term of that license.
All right, again, all right, so it's the same, I'm just trying to make it plain, so when people call, I don't want to hear say one thing, hear and then go another. When people call and ask for a wedding, as long as that caterer is in place, like she has been, they're able to get the beer and wine based off of her non-residential license, and now she's registered with the city of Thomaston, all right? And so she just has to renew that in order to have beer and wine at the catering events. Not sale, it's just the same way it's been doing, because we've never sold at weddings. No one has ever sold at weddings.
You say that.
No one has ever sold at my weddings.
Okay.
I say that.
Okay.
No one has ever sold.
The way I understand it, she wouldn't have to have a per event license. If she's a licensed caterer, then that's her business, right? She can go cater. She can even sell it.
Right. Well, it's the customers again, the patrons who just give away the beer at the reception or the wine. All right. Good.
All right, so transferability of license, we've covered that. All right, so page 35 or 37, subsection E, this is the provision that I talked about. Current alcohol licenses shall have till December 31st, 22 to be in full compliance of all the provisions of this ordinance, except for the security camera provision. There's a 6 months, and Bill, I'm going to get with the chief about the operation, and we'll provide some clarification. If we need to tweak that, we can. Effective July 1st, January 1st, 2022. You'll see a map the mayor's going to pull up there. The city has created an entertainment district, and this will be a walkable geography within the downtown, where there will be much reduced restrictions on open containers. The city of Thomaston is currently in the process of trying to cordon off this area via some signage or stamped concrete to let pedestrians, tourists, and citizens know the boundaries of the district. There will be cups that the city's also in the process of purchasing. They'll have a place for the seller to write the date on it. It'll have a map to let the patrons know where they can carry the cup. And people will be able to go to these businesses, they can buy a drink, and then within this district, they'll be able to walk around, sip, stroll, have their alcoholic beverage. So that goes into effect, not July, January 1st, 2022, and we did a post-dated effective date on that so that we can order our cups and provide all of the signage. All right, I've talked a lot. there's probably 10 times as much detail in the actual document. If you go to the City of Thomaston's website, you scroll down, look for this flyer, and right above this flyer, you will find a link to the ordinance in its entirety. Take some time, review that. If you think we need to have another one of these meetings, after you've had time to read it and digest, if you'll contact City Hall, we certainly don't mind doing that. Or if you have one-off questions and you want to shoot me an email, or if you want to call or come by and see me, we'll try to do our best to answer it. So I've got about 17 minutes left before Ms. Nichols is going to kick us out, so I'm going to open it up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
When did you say it would start for the to-go containers for the alcohol?
January 1st, 22.
And I'll be around, so I'm in the process of ordering. We're getting some, working with Crown Technology to do some pavement markers in downtown. Cool little designs. People know they're coming in the entertainment district. Working with another company to print the actual cups. We're gonna have the cups, like you said, have the map on it, have the date on it. Any of your customers, they come in, they want to take a beer to go. It's got to be in the cup. It's only valid for that date. So,
And it's going to be a common cup, right? So it's not, everybody's got to have the same cup, so it's easily identifiable by law enforcement. We'll be providing the cups, they got the map on it, the date, that it was sold at the restaurant. And as long as the patron has, the drink in that cup within the district,
It's good to go.
enjoy.
Okay, and how do we ID the people? Do we just ID the person that comes in to pick up the food? Or?
Are you talking about the to-go stuff?
Yes.
So the to-go stuff is already in effect.
Oh, okay. So we can right now sell freeze to go,
Yes,
and we just have to ID the person that is there to pick up the food.
yes.
Gotta be sealed,
Sealed.
you've got to look at the parameters.
Yeah, there's a whole provision in here of how it's got to be sealed.
Okay.
So, so the question that was debated amongst the city council is how does that work with open container? And apparently there's a process that you can go through to make sure that that drink is technically not open container. So you need to follow that protocol as well. And it's outlined. If you'll go to that, I think it's Class C in the ordinance, you can read all about it.
I'm working on like a DoorDash and stuff, if the DoorDash people, I don't have a restaurant, but I just want to be curious about it. There's a, 17, 18 years old, hold license, they work for DoorDash and all. If they order some alcohol beverage from them and.
My recommendation is if in doubt, don't sell. If they're 17, I wouldn't give it to them.
I'm just curious about it. I'm not,
Yeah.
we don't have a pouring license anyway.
Right. I'd err on the side of caution and liability. Y'all want to take a little bit and digest it and maybe have another one of these or
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'll be great.
That'd be great,
Well,
so.
what you were asking, Bill, it actually says, furnished with accompanying food order to the customer on the premises, is what we've got.
So you have
So
to
the
be the
customer would come and pick it up.
He's talking about the situation of DoorDash.
DoorDash is not really the customer, you're that middleman, so I think
So
that
they
It
would-
has to be customer?
they would be
Yeah, they
eligible.
cannot just, they cannot order online and have it delivered to them.
Not currently. And if that's something we need to explore, I don't know how that would work.
That'd be tricky.
Half of the drink might go to the customer.
We offer DoorDash, and they mentioned they're working on something to where they can do alcohol sales through DoorDash.
You got car hops here now. I don't know how that, if they'll, you go to, I'm trying to think, do they go to restaurants? Yeah, I guess they go to the Mexican restaurant. So if that's the case, they sell liquor or beer. I don't know how they do it now. If you order, if they'll pick it up.
I mean, we got a girl who works for me part-time, she worked for DoorDash, she said she goes to just about all the restaurants and everywhere to pick up the order for different customers. So when we have this ordinance take that place and they can order, I mean, I think she clarified, it has to be the customer. I don't know how it's gonna be enforced by, like,
I don't think the ordinance refers to the DoorDash scenario. I think it's on the
It's
premise
not
of.
just a DoorDash only, like, if, I place the order, but I tell Nick, go pick up my order from there, but he's not, he's
Right.
not old enough, but I'll place the order, but I order alcohol beverage with it, but he's under 21,
I don't think they're
can
gonna.
he go get it?
But wouldn't that fall under, state law? Like, even my restaurant, Southside Wings, if I'm selling a beer to somebody, I have to pull a license check.
I would think so. I don't
And
know.
if they're not 21, it's not legal for me to sell. If they're picking up from DoorDash or one of the others, if the person picking up's not 21, it's not legal to sell.
I would think so, but I don't want to play
That's
lawyer.
probably how it would play out.
I would think so. It
It
makes
says
sense.
you have to check their license
Right.
to make sure they're 21 for the sale. If they're not, you can't sell them even for a customer.
On the camera thing, there's nothing in there saying this is forcing the businesses to comply with officers if they come in and request footage. This is just saying your cameras have to be up to date as stated in here, correct?
I have to read it.
Well, the provision that says that your premises have to be open to the officers
For inspection.
for inspection would certainly encompass that. Are you saying the officers, that it doesn't allow the officers to look at the camera system?
I'm asking, is that left up to the owner at that point, or is this ordinance pretty much saying now the officers just have the right to come in there and get this footage regardless of how the owner feels about it?
I think if it was a requirement and there was probable cause for the remediation or the investigation of a crime, then yeah.
I can give an example if that'll help. Like that four-way my dad mentioned, there's a lot of accidents that happen there. And sometimes the officer will come in and ask if he can see that footage. We have no problem showing it,
Right.
of course.
But it's
But-
not necessarily tied with anything at your
Yeah.
business, and
So
you don't
would
want
it
to be in it.
personal preference, like if we want to offer that footage, it's up to us. If we don't, it's still up to us, or is it saying like now you have to offer that footage?
I wouldn't think that the intent of the ordinance would be to put a business to be the police for the police, right? But if there's an issue at your particular store that's tied to it, then yes, we would have access.
And there's one time, this guy came threaten me because officer came, look at the video footage and make the video out of our camera. And of course, it was that person's fault. And that person personally came and told me he want to see me, he want to do this and that to me because I showed the camera to that police officer.
I'm gonna let Deanne answer that question. That's probably more of a legal question.
I didn't understand the question.
So he was
I knew
threatened.
that
Well, the question is if I don't have anything happen in my store, but it happens to be directed out on the public right of way and there's a wreck, can the police come compel them to turn that over?
I don't know that they could. I think that you've been cooperative with it. If it's within an investigation, possibly, if they get court order, you know.
Yeah, which is what
I'm not
he
sure.
did. And like recently, not long ago, there was two guys fighting right on the street, right by the Holloway Tower on the right of way. And of course, nobody want to commit to it was this person's fault or this person's fault, and it went down to they wanted to see the camera who did what, who jumped on, first. And I didn't have no problem to showing to the officer. I did, but I get in the middle of it. I have nothing to do with neither party. I got drug in for no reason.
Well, that would be criminal act though, possibly tied into a criminal case. It's gonna be the scenario and based on the circumstances.
I guess we have to kind of very open and understand with law enforcement, which is, I wanted to be protected. I wanted to do the right thing. And, right is right, wrong is wrong. But sometimes you got drug into something you don't, ask for it, but you got drug into the stuff you have nothing to do with. And it's hard to, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
How long does it have to be reported for? So like, I know they have subscriptions, but they're kind of expensive. So we have a limit that lasts 2 weeks, and then it'll delete the footage.
How long is you keep it on a deal?
I'm gonna defer that to the chief of police, and I would think in the incidence of a crime, they're gonna know about a crime pretty quick, so I wouldn't imagine it's gonna be too, I mean, you'll be able to let it loop,
Yeah.
but I'll get the answer and we'll post that. We'll do a questions on our website and I'll post that as one of the answers.
Did you say yours for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That should be fine. All right, we'll take one more question. Anybody got one more?
I think everything y'all got it included in there is for, good for city of Palmerston, good for all the, you know, the residents of, the business owners, the residents of city of Palmerston, which is, you know, we should have this and implement, but we need to kind of look at the more wisely to see, because sometimes, you know, it's a true saying, one bad apple spoils the whole basket. That's actually, if you're doing the right thing and you do what you're supposed to, don't do what you have no business doing, you don't have no problem, if as long as you follow the rules and regulations. But then, there are some people, they don't want it to do what they're supposed to, they want to get the as shortcut as possibly can be to get from A to B, and so, that's the issue. But I think everything's look pretty good as far as, on the camera part of it, y'all probably.
Yeah, you can definitely.
You probably need to
Camera power.
put more clarify on it, because I don't want the officer come to our location, kind of twist our arm, just quit doing what you're doing now, show me the camera, because I wanted to see it, and we don't want it to be breaking the law at that point, you know?
Right. We'll clarify that.
Yes, sir.
And some customer was mad too, if he saw the camera. So why you show the camera, the footage? It's not from your parking lot.
It has happened to me before.
So,
They get upset
after
with me.
police left and the guy was coming in and come outside, I want to look at you. So, it can be happen to me, it's not happen to us, you know? So that's so part of that. I don't mind like I want to show the camera. It's happening a lot of time in I have the store in neighborhood. So it happens all the time. I show the camera all the time.
If the camera is an issue, maybe I need to have the chief at one of these, and we can walk through the public safety aspect
Yeah.
and try to get some answers.
And look at the safety of the business owner as well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's the way, it doesn't matter, even though it's your household camera, and they see some, and whoever's committed the crime, that person not gonna like you regardless.
Yeah.
So that person wanted to hurt you or do something to you because you are the one, that person got in trouble. And you have no intent for him to get in trouble. He or she got in trouble itself just because you have that footage.
Yeah.
For you providing that footage, they basically clarify who did what, but you got in the mess and you don't want to be in.
You need more discretion. We can have that conversation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all for coming. If you want to hang around for another 30 minutes, we can do another meeting.
What is the agenda?
It's pretty big.
Before this dinner time.
I got one if you want to come look at it.
Huh?
I got one if you want to come look at it.
Come on. It's dinner time, brother. That's why your brain is not thinking like.
You got one, you said?
Oh, well, you can't have it, but I can let you look at it.
Is that only